Come all you young rebels, and list while I sing. For the love of one's country is a terrible thing. It banishes fear with the speed of a flame, and makes us all part of the patriot game. I dreamed of a world where all people live free.
I am a human being.
I am a human being.
I am a human being. I am a human being.
I am a human being.
I am a human being. I am a human being.
I am a human being.
I am.
I am a human being.
I am a human being. I am a human being.
A human being.
I am a human being.
I'm a human being.
I am a human being.
A human being.
Human being. All players beware the new patriot game.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out on this momentous date. 10 years ago today, the United States opened the detention center at Guantanamo Bay, land which the United States itself had stolen from Cuba over 100 years ago, and brought hundreds of men from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from Germany, from the former Yugoslavia, from around the world, men who would never see the light of day again, who would not come before a judge, who would not know what charges were against them, who would not be allowed to see any evidence supposedly against them, and said that this was all for our safety as Americans. 10 years later, over 170 men are still confined to Guantanamo, despite the promise of then candidate Barack Obama that it would be closed down. So it is more important than ever that on this 10th anniversary we are here in Chicago on the same day that now President Obama is coming here to raise funds for his re-election. We are here to say no. We will not support the continuation of torture, the continuation of indefinite detention, the continuation of the lawlessness and war of the previous regime. My name is Jay Becker, and I'm going to be
I want to start telling you in terms of my experience back like more than 30 years ago in Chile during the Pinochet regime, where I was detained for opposing that military dictatorship and kept in concentration camp for more than 2 years, and in an interrogation and torture center for more than 2 months. After that experience and being expelled from Chile and coming into the US, I never expect, like 30 years later, to see here in the United States of America that there was a camp of detention, a concentration camp as we called them back in Chile, very, very similar to what we have more than 30 years ago. We have to say no this kind of detention center, no this kind of concentration camp. So we all have to fight together. So the call I'm making tonight, to this afternoon, I mean, is like we have to work more and more and more. Our president is here today in Chicago. We should go there and tell them, yes, you promised this 3 years ago. Where are you now? Where are your promises? You want to be elected? Well, think about that too.
I do think Guantanamo is a symbol, a terrible symbol, when I think our nation lost its way a little bit. You know, we've always had enemies as a nation, but only in the last 10 years have we done some of the things, such as going around the world, taking civilians out of their home, sending them halfway around the world to a penal colony where they are held without charges, without evidence. Most of the people that were sent to Guantanamo are there because our government paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to bounty hunters in Muslim countries to turn in a terrorist. No questions asked, no evidence required. My client, his name is Shawali Khan. He's an uneducated farmer from Kandahar, Afghanistan. He has been held at Guantanamo Bay for 9 years based on the word of a single informant, a single paid informant. And after 9 years in American courts, the government has still not told us who this informant is or how much he was paid. We don't even have the most basic information to defend him. You know, it wasn't so long ago when our country, before we declared war, Congress had to declare war, like it says in the Constitution. Today, the president can just send our young men and women overseas like a king. What I'm here to say is 10 years is enough. It's time for us to start repairing the damage that we've done to our nation and to repair our credibility as moral leaders of the world. Thank you.
Talk about is how the narrative of Guantanamo Bay and similar detention prisons changed very dramatically 2 weeks ago when this president signed into law the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. One of the provisions of the NDAA 2012 is that American citizens on American soil are now subject to and can lawfully be placed in similar kinds of detention facilities without trial, without seeing the evidence put against them, without being charged, and without being subject to a trial by their peers. The issue, what we should be calling the National Defense Authorization Act, is Guantanamo for everyone, where over the past 10 years, many Americans felt as though the Guantanamo Bay issue was far away, it didn't apply to them, it didn't apply to their families or their children. What Obama has told us, what the Congress has told us, is that the harsh reality of torture, of deprivation of civil liberties, and of the most basic rights afforded to human beings, that's now our story. Those are now the fears that we must constantly live with. The provisions in the NDAA give the government a very broad latitude to take American citizens and to place them in these kinds of detention facilities. They use vague words like association or support in order to determine who's a terrorist and who is not. But I think we all need to stand here together today and every day after today and say that it doesn't matter whether you're associated with certain people, it doesn't matter what your political beliefs. The fact is that we are all due a very specific modicum of dignity and of justice. Our legal system was founded on the idea that one is innocent until proven guilty, and that the only way to determine guilt is to come before a trial of one's peers. We all need to stand together today as Obama comes back to our city and to stand in fierce opposition to the National Defense Authorization Act. Thank you.
indefinite detention, cruel and unusual punishment, suicide, and death was institutionalized with the establishment of Guantanamo. It has also been 10 years since the Department of Homeland Security stated that local police not only have the power to, but the responsibility to enforce federal immigration laws, igniting the current reality that the immigrant population of this country faces: unjustified arrest, indefinite detention, cruel and unusual punishment, suicides, and deaths. First, we have to recognize that the U.S.'s economy is supported on the back of immigrants, farm workers, factory workers, domestic workers. It is not in a question of ability or intelligence or superiority why migrants labor in the least paid and most exploitative jobs. Immigration law has criminalized them, making any other job near impossible. At the same time, this country's economic system, in conjunction with military-backed business interests, continues to produce the contradiction of a person without personhood, the undocumented, the no longer people but aliens, no longer justified in their struggle to survival, but criminal in their attempt. This is no accident. Our economy demands a disenfranchised, disempowered, and exploited laboring class. The legality of immigration is a mere distraction from the real reason behind immigration control. Not to mention the morality of immigration detention also shoots any legal talking point to the ground. Mexico's farmers, starved by NAFTA, found their only option to be crossing the border. Guatemala's people, under the terror of a 30-year civil war incited by the U.S., saw no other chance for survival but to migrate to the USA. Meanwhile, the U.S. government has immigration law written by the 1%, the sickly union of business and government seen in ALEC, in which anti-immigrant legislation is written by both private detention corporations and Congress members. There's a profit for every person placed under private detention, and the majority of my immigration detention facilities are private. We are here today because for too long our rights have been violated, our voices ignored. We call for the abolition of the unjustified arrest, indefinite detention, cruel and unusual punishment, suicide and death suffered in Guantanamo and in the U.S. We call for amnesty, the recognition and respect for our dignity and our rights as human beings. Thank you.
That we could be one of the first cities to actually have a resolution against torture. And tomorrow we have an exciting initiative that is a resolution against torture that will be brought forward to the City Council. U.S. Congressperson Danny Davis will be there, Alderman Joe Moore, who actually initially introduced this resolution. He's an alderman in the 49th Ward. We can have a tangible response on a local level to say that Chicago is a city that has zero tolerance for torture.
To imagine for a moment if George Bush, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, John Yoo, Jay Bybee had been prosecuted for war crimes.
In the 10 years since the detention facility opened at Guantanamo Bay, we've seen a drastic change in the global reputation of the United States. Once viewed by people around the world as a defender of human rights, we've transformed into a nation that willfully and publicly violates international standards of behavior and ignores our obligations under international agreements, including the Convention Against Torture and the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. By asserting its right to abduct people from anywhere in the world, transport them out of their home country, and hold them indefinitely without charge or trial, while subjecting them to torture and so-called enhanced interrogation techniques, the U.S. government is essentially holding the entire world hostage. And today, people around the world are responding to that by demonstrating in marking the 10th anniversary of Guantanamo, as well as the passage of the NDAA. The whole world has a stake in this, but ultimately it's up to us to hold our government accountable. It's up to us to make clear that we will not tolerate a government that thinks repression and torture are the best ways to protect our freedom. So what can we do? First and foremost, we need to tell President Obama and our elected officials that it's time to shut down Guantanamo and end indefinite detention. Senators Durbin and Kirk both voted for the NDAA. Boo. Yeah. Tell them you expect better and ask them to protect our fundamental rights. Call, write, schedule in-district meetings in their offices, and do not let up. Let them know that we're not going to forget and we're not going away. Shutting down Guantanamo and ending indefinite detention are critical steps to restoring our credibility as a nation. But it's not just in our international conduct that the U.S. violates standards of international behavior against torture and ill treatment. And we need to work towards reform at the federal, state, and local levels. For example, Amnesty International researchers determined that conditions within the U.S. correctional system, including the TAMS Supermax prison here in Illinois, constitute a violation of international human rights standards. Prolonged isolation and solitary confinement and the lack of treatment for psychological issues that arise from or are exacerbated by that solitary confinement are clear violations of human rights. We're told that prosecutors will seek the death penalty against some of the prisoners being held at Guantanamo, and Amnesty International considers the death penalty the ultimate, irreversible violation of human rights. Here in Illinois, we abolished the death penalty last year. Yeah. But there's still work to be done in 34 states across the country and at the federal level to ensure that people are not killed in our name. Finally, as we look forward to the G8 and NATO summits here in Chicago, we must protect the right to peaceful protest and guard against preemptive, arbitrary detentions. So what can you do about all of these issues? Speak out. Contact your elected officials. Write letters to the editor. Get involved with the groups that are working on these issues. The most important thing is that we do not let up. We must continue to demand accountability from our public officials at every level and demand that they respect the basic rights of every human being. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah.
In Berlin, there was a demonstration, 4 men in orange jumpsuits in a cage in front of the U.S. Embassy in Berlin, the capital of Germany. A country that has its own history of concentration camps, torture, and genocide, and the new generation is teaching this country what's wrong with that. Paris, demonstrators in orange jumpsuits draped a replica of the Statue of Liberty in orange, calling out the U.S. to end torture and shut down Guantanamo now. There was a extremely moving and powerful demonstration today in Washington, D.C., where hundreds lined up in orange jumpsuits, organized by Amnesty International in the House, by World Can't Wait, by Witness Against Torture, by Code Pink, by all the groups that have been standing up against this for now a decade.
There's 779 men who have been held at Guantanamo in the last 9 years in the time it's been open. 171 men remain there from 23 different countries. 92% of these men are not Al-Qaeda, according to the U.S. records themselves. 89 of the 171 men who remain have been cleared for release, but remain. Indefinite detention is a form of torture, and so we remember that today.
Courage, brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home. Courage, brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home. Let's hear you sing. Courage, brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you. And sing your spirits home. Let's do that again. Courage, brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home. Courage, brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home. Courage, brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home.
No matter how beaten and bruised, there is a man under that hood that is exactly as human as you. There is a man under that hood. Regardless of his religion, there is a man who doesn't understand why we don't see him. Why it's so hard for us to imagine what it would be like to be him. There where they sit in our prisons, hidden from our justice system, locked away. Are we going to pretend that they're less than men and just walk away? Or will we raise our eyes above the walls, raise our voices up to call out our government, to say we see you, we are watching what you're doing.
Dick Cheney, he was a desperate little man. He robbed the USA, and he stole from the people, and he hid it from the law. You ought to seen Dick Cheney getting away, Lord, Lord. Well, you ought to seen Dick Cheney getting away. All his companies were handed them billion-dollar deals to destroy Iraqi cities, and then there was tens of billions more to go back and build it or and blow it up and build it back again. Lord, Lord, and blow it up and build it back again. Well, every way Dick Cheney could win, Lord, Lord, and every way Dick Cheney was raking it in. Well, he did it all in daylight, and he didn't act alone. With Rumsfeld, Rice, Bush, and others too. Last words that he say at the end of every day: Dick Cheney, we've been very good to you. Just remember, old Dick Cheney, we've been oh so good to you. Yes, they'd done it for the money, and they'd done it out of greed. They said it's for the red, white, and blue. Made the world a living hell where 100 million dwell. Then they sent the bill to me and you. Yes, they did, and they sent it to our children's children, to our children's children. soldiers on the ground took the heat, yes they did. Oh yeah, the soldiers always take the bloody heat. America, America, God shed His grace on thee. We're trusting you to save us if you can, from the greed and corruption of sociopaths and the terrors of a desperate little man. Lord, Lord, from the terrors of a desperate little man. The terrors of a desperate little man. Little man. Desperate.